In the US Army, if you get in serious enough trouble, you could get what is called an Article 15. That could result in loss of rank, loss of pay, have to work longer hours as punishment, or even all of the above. Now, I never got one, but I'm also not perfect either. But let me tell you about some times where I could have possibly gotten an Article 15 if I had gotten caught, and that video starts right now. I want to start off by mentioning that these things that could have gotten me an Article 15 are not like I did drugs and got away with it, or I committed some kind of serious crime and never got caught. No, these are like things that are mistakes that, yes, had I gotten caught, maybe, depending on the leadership of what they wanted to do, could have resulted in me getting an Article 15, or it could have just simply resulted in me getting yelled at. So nonetheless, there's a little bit of gray area there, but nonetheless, these are things that, I could have gotten in trouble for, maybe Article 15, maybe getting yelled at, maybe gotten smoked. I don't know. Let's talk about them now. The first one is underage drinking. Now, let's not pretend that you all waited until your 21st birthday before you had any alcohol. Most people usually have some form of alcohol, usually before they even turn 21, whether they got, drunk and wasted, or they just maybe had a beer here or there or something. When you're single living in the barracks, there's parties that are going to be happening. And there's definitely some times where, somebody down the hall was having a party. They got, a bathtub full of ice and alcohol and beers and drinks and everything like that, and they're having a good time, and we're hanging out, playing video games, socializing, drinking alcohol. And sure, had like maybe an NCO or some other leadership come by and caught us, maybe could have gotten in trouble. There's also some leadership that probably like understands, like, hey, I was there at one point in time. They might just say, hey, chill out. You guys that are under 21, go back to your rooms. The rest of you guys, just keep it down, whatever, keep it calm or whatever. Maybe it would have been cool. But had they really wanted to stick by the book, then yeah, they could be like, hey, let me see some IDs. Let me see who's 21 and who's not 21 that's actually drinking right now. Because they could do that. I have heard of cases where, soldiers have gotten in trouble for underage drinking. I've also heard of cases where leadership was like, no, just tell them to quit that crap and go back to their room and everything. So it really is going to depend on the leadership on that one. But there was definitely times in the barracks where, I was having a good time, drinking, having a fun time with my friends, and I was not 21 and, drinking some alcohol. Fun kind of extra thing. I remember when I actually did turn 21, I was stationed at Fort Riley and I was all excited to go down to, the shop at, go buy some alcohol. Guess what? They didn't even card me. It was my birthday. I thought that, oh cool, get carded for the first time, buy some alcohol. Nope. Guy at the counter just took my money. I walked out with some alcohol that I could have possibly not been underage. Who knows? So I don't know, a weird thing, but let's move on to number 2. The second one is sneaking females into my room when not supposed to do that. You can do that, like stateside or wherever, you sign them in through the CQ desk or whatever, and you have certain hours where you can have visitors and everything. But I'm gonna specifically talk about a time in Korea where I snuck in a girl that I was seeing and everything, kind of outside of the rules of the way you're supposed to do things. So where I was at was way up north, right? I was right on the border of North and South Korea. I was at the Joint Security Area, or the JSA, Camp Boniface, and we had a little bit of kind of strict rules as far as how things kind of had to work. We did have ways where we could have visitors, so you did have a way to have a visitor, and you could have them for a certain amount of time, and then they had to leave kind of thing, and you could even have overnight visitors, and there was a kind of a format that had to be done for that kind of version. If you wanted to have overnight visitors, they did have these guest barracks that had like a few rooms in there that didn't seem like they used too often, but they did have that available for like family to come to visit, or whoever comes to visit, they could stay overnight in these guest barracks. The guest barracks were actually even better than the regular barracks, but we won't get into that. But they had these guest barracks that we had, and all you had to do was kind of submit a form saying, hey, I have a guest that's going to be coming, I'd like to reserve one of those rooms, and I'm going to be staying with a guest or whatever the case is, and they would reserve one of those rooms for you. So the sergeant major would kind of sign off on this little form and everything to have the dates that, your overnight visitor was authorized to stay for and everything like that, and you had the guest lodging kind of laid on and everything. So I had done that a few times where I had this person that I was seeing, officially, staying the night, and I was staying in guest lodging. Now, those documents, they did not keep those at the little kind of checkpoint that they kind of like check that documentation when they came onto post. They would usually check that to see, hey, is your visitor allowed to stay overnight, or are they just staying for the day type of thing? But I got to keep those documents, and it was pretty easy to modify some dates a little bit. So essentially what I do, maybe you have like, I was authorized on November 4th, and I could easily change that November 4th to November 14th if it worked out well. Things like that. I had several different ones where I had done it legitimately, but then there were some times I didn't feel like going through the process and I was just gonna have her stay in my barracks room with me, and so I forged some documents, I guess, sort of, just to keep an overnight visitor for a night or two. Had I gotten caught, I don't know. I don't know if I was on Article 15. It could have just simply been a thing where someone would have yelled at me. They would have, made her go home. Maybe I wouldn't have been allowed to have any more visitors on post anymore ever again. I don't know. But nonetheless, never got caught. Maybe they didn't give a crap. Maybe, people understand that, hey, we're secluded up here. Maybe it's cool. Or maybe they could have come down on me and I could have got Article 15 for that. Now, this video is brought to you by the new RUNDEER Attack 10 electric bike. They sent me one. This thing is pretty fun. This thing is actually built for off-roading. It has 20-inch tires that can handle multiple types of terrain. It has a top speed of 30 miles an hour, and then the battery range roughly could be anywhere from 40 miles to 60 miles before you need to recharge. Now, from the B-roll that you can see probably showing up here, I actually have a video on the RUNDEER Attack 10 that I did a deep dive where I tested it out, see what it can do, see what it can handle and everything. And if you really check it out, I mean, I even got a wreck in there. I did take a little bit of a fall, but I'm okay. And if you want to see that wreck, check out that whole video. I'll leave a link down in the description box down below for the Unboxing Chaos channel, where I did a deep dive into the Attack 10 to see what it's all about. Also leave a link down in the description box down below for RUNDEER's website if it's a bike that you're interested in and you want to pick up. So check it out if you want to learn about the features, what it can do. Check out that fun little wreck that I got. I got a little bit of a battle scar right there. I'm okay. I'll be fine. So check out that video. Let's move on into the third thing that possibly could have landed me in Article 15, and that is fraternizing with lower enlisted or even higher enlisted. That's the thing you're not supposed to do in the Army. You're not supposed to fraternize with individuals, that are lower ranking than you, higher ranking than you. It really kind of gets to be a really gray area, especially if that person is one of your soldiers. Now, I will say that these individuals that I did hang out with were not my direct soldiers, but there were soldiers maybe in my platoon or in my company or in my troop, kind of a thing. That's still kind of frowned upon. There is also a case where there was an officer that I hung out with as well. That's definitely a no-no on the officer and me as well, I guess. So let me tell you about that. There's definitely some times where just hanging out and about, but the main one that probably is the more thing that maybe could have landed Article 15 or could have just landed us getting, a yelling at or something like that, is a party. Several parties actually. So specifically that officer, I don't remember the LT's name. He was a cool guy, but I can't remember off the top of my head what his name was. Even if I did remember his name, I probably wouldn't disclose that. But nonetheless, he was an officer. He actually lived on post. He was single, so he got to have on-post housing if he wished to do so. So he did have a place on post, and there was many times we would go over to his place on post, have a little fun. So there would be me, an E5, a sergeant, a couple of other NCOs. I think there was some E6s. There would be some E4 and below, and then I don't think there was any other officers. I think he was usually the only officer. But we'd be there having a good time, having some drinks. He even had a stripper pole. I think there was one party, I don't think I made it to that party, but where he actually hired a couple strippers to come and put on a show while everybody was drinking and everything at his place. I think I missed that party, sadly, but nonetheless, there was many other parties where you're just hanging out at his place with a mixture of different ranks and everything, drinking alcohol, have a good time. Like I said, none of these individuals were really in direct chain of command, so it really didn't result in any kind of favoritism towards anybody because, the LT was in a different platoon. He was in the same troop, but in a different platoon. A lot of the other NCOs were in my same platoon. There was a few of the soldiers that were also in our platoon, but not in the same squads. So really, it didn't really create any favoritism towards us. Still, nonetheless, not something you're supposed to do in the first place. If we had gotten caught, maybe because something happened or for whatever reason, somebody showed up at the place and found out that, hey, this person's a private first class, this person's a sergeant, that person's an LT and lives here, maybe could have gone down pretty bad. We kept it pretty casual. We didn't do anything crazy. We didn't get any, wild. We made sure that, people had, designated drivers. If you didn't, then you could, spend the night on the couch. The LT made sure of that, so we were pretty safe about things. We were making sure that, nobody was going to get in trouble. Nobody was going to be, going out and drinking and driving or doing something dumb or whatever. So we always had a plan and made sure that, try to keep it safe. That way nobody would get in trouble. Fourth one, maybe could have got Article 15, is I overslept, sort of, and could have missed formation, or I guess I kind of did miss formation. I don't know. Let me kind of explain the story. So at this point in time, I was already living off post. I was still single. I didn't want to live in the barracks anymore. I had the money that I could afford a cheap apartment. So I had a cheap apartment that I was, just paying out of pocket, I guess, because I wasn't receiving BAH or BAS or anything. So paying out of pocket for this cheap apartment. The following day, we were supposed to do a road march. So it was supposed to be something like maybe I think like 05 or something like that. Something really early in the morning for formation before we kicked off for this road march. Had everything ready and everything, but I must have forgotten to set my alarm or something got messed up because I woke up to a phone call from my platoon sergeant. Platoon sergeant's calling me, and I don't know if he was just kind of being understanding or I don't know what the deal was, but he's like, hey, you're probably on your way. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and head back home. And the reason for that was that we had a really bad snowstorm over the night. I slept through it, didn't realize it, and we had a crap ton of snow on the ground that caused, the installation to close because of the snow and the delays and the roads and everything. So there was a lot of people that were not able to make it in because they were having a hard time getting on post because the roads conditions were so bad, and then they eventually closed post. So some people must have made it and some people didn't make it, and I guess he just assumed that I was still on my way and having a hard time trying to get on post, or I don't know, maybe he was kind of figured that, oh, maybe he overslept and he's still back at his place. I don't know, but called me up, said, hey, if you're already on your way, probably don't worry about it. Post is closed. We'll see you tomorrow. So had that snow not saved me, I'd probably been pretty screwed and would have missed that formation because I probably wouldn't have woken up until like an hour after formation or something like that because formation was pretty early, like 5 in the morning. So I probably would have naturally woken up maybe like 5:36 or something like that and would have been too late by then. Thankfully, that's actually the only time I've ever had that kind of situation. I don't think I've ever had it where I overslept and missed formation or anything else like that. I think it was just that one time, and I don't even know what the hell happened. I think I just forgot to set my alarm, but that snow saved me from possibly an Article 15, possibly an ass chewing. I don't know, but nonetheless, got a free snow day out of it and saved myself maybe an Article 15, maybe an ass chewing. One last one, fifth one. There was a time in Iraq that I left my MVGs behind. That's usually kind of a big deal, people lose their weapon or leave a weapon behind, lose their MVGs, their night vision goggles, that kind of a thing. I didn't really lose them, I just kind of left them behind. So let's explain this story. So we came back off of mission. I had like a little bag that I kept my MVGs inside of. A lot of people had like these little green bags that usually you kept your night vision goggles inside of. And I had them behind the seat in the vehicle. We were doing some night operations. We usually didn't actually use the night vision goggles, especially because on this deployment I was in Baghdad, and there's a lot of city lights and street lights and everything from the city, being in Baghdad doing operations. So MVGs don't make a lot of sense, but nonetheless, you still had to have them with you. After we got done with mission, I forgot that I still had my MVGs behind the seat, so I left the vehicle in the motor pool, went back to my room, and I think it was the next morning I was doing something and I was like, oh crap, I left my MVGs inside the vehicle. So I quickly went back to the motor pool to try to go retrieve my MVGs out of that vehicle, and they weren't there anymore. Started to panic a little bit, so I was like, okay, maybe somebody at the fuel section, because there was a fuel point right there, maybe it was going through vehicles or something like that, took them out of there and secured them or something, I don't know. I went inside the fuel point, there was this other NCO in there that I was pretty cool with. I asked him, I was like, hey, I left my MVGs inside that vehicle. Have you seen them by any chance? And thankfully, he had. He thought maybe it was a soldier left him behind and he was gonna wait for the soldier to come behind, and maybe smoke him for it or whatever kind of thing. We were both NCOs, and he's like, oh man, these are yours? Oh, I was hoping it was gonna be a soldier so I could smoke the shit out of him, but here you go, man. So thankfully, it was just a fellow NCO that policed up after my mistake of leaving behind my MVGs inside my vehicle. At least it was inside my vehicle and not somewhere else. Would that ever result in Article 15? Let's say if I was a younger soldier, probably not. Probably just would have gotten smoked. But had they been like missing, maybe then that would have been, more grounds for an Article 15. But thankfully, it's just a thing where that other NCO was cleaning out the vehicles, going through the vehicles, whatever, making sure that nobody left anything behind, which I did, and he policed up my MVGs. I got them back. I don't think I ever misplaced my MVGs ever again. I'm sure there's some viewers out there that maybe are currently in the Army, maybe you're some veterans out there, whatever the case is. Maybe you did get an Article 15, maybe you avoided it, maybe you didn't get caught. Love to hear about it down in the comment section down below if you would like to share about it, Let me know, what are some instances where you did get an Article 15, or maybe there's some times where you could have, but you just didn't get caught. Hopefully nothing serious like, oh yeah, this one time I murdered this dude, but they never found the body, so I got away with it. Hopefully nothing that serious. Like I said, all of mine are minor things for the most part, right? Nothing really serious, nothing really big kind of a thing. Like I, tried to kill somebody, I stole a vehicle, I did some drugs, nothing wild and crazy like that. But nonetheless, these are things that potentially could have gotten me in Article 15. I do have an older video that kind of talks about like punishments with Article 15s. If you want to check that out, I got that video up right here if you want to check it out. I also have this video right here that YouTube says is a good kind of fit for you. Check out my links down in the description box down below. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. I'm Christopher Chaos, and I'll see you next time. See ya.